Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane Pro and HD video blog for Friday, the 20th day of September, 2013. Tropics starting to simmer down as if they were really ever boiling over. We had a little bit of activity at the peak of the season, but we all know that it was nothing compared to what was forecast for this year, and that ends up being a really good thing for most of the Atlantic Basin coastal dwellers. We did have a lot of rain, though, here in Mexico, both on the eastern side and the western side, associated with tropical cyclones. But as we go into this weekend, only a small area of concern in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, another area to watch here south of Bermuda, which is right there. Everything else, including way out here, and especially way out here in the tropical Atlantic, nice and quiet as the Cape Verde season is pretty much winding down. We may see one or two storms develop out in the tropical Atlantic before all is said and done. That's just more of a statistical thing rather than what we see in the computer models. You know, you think about, we do have 10 days of September left and then all of October, November. Statistically speaking, you may still have something develop way out in the tropical Atlantic is all that comes down to. But this weekend, things looking nice and calm. If we look at the satellite loop of the Atlantic Basin this afternoon, here's 95L in the Gulf of Mexico. Very, very weak and disorganized. The energy and the moisture from it getting pulled, as you can clearly see here, up into this storm system coming out of the Great Plains. That will dump a lot of rain, already doing so in parts of Texas, and that'll spread across the Gulf Coast states here. The low pressure area could get sort of pulled up into this system and be more of a hybrid type storm system over the very warm waters of the Gulf, with a lot of the heavy precip on the eastern side. And so there will be a pretty stiff east to southeast wind piling into the Gulf here over the next few days, and that could create some coastal flooding concerns in some of the typical flood prone areas of that part of the Gulf Coast. In fact, if we look at the radar, Texas, nice and saturated in a lot of the eastern part of the state with very heavy rain in some areas. This is welcome rain, honestly. You know, you think about people would rather have a sunny day versus a rainy day, but the drought in Texas is substantial enough still that this rain is, in most cases, kind of badly needed. Shifting the radar picture to the east, you see this front coming through and the moisture streaming in off the Gulf, and that'll feed this surface low that is going to track across the region and bring quite a bit of heavy rain over the next several days. Here is the quantitative precipitation forecast, just a fancy way of saying how much rain is going to fall over the next few days. And you see a pretty good swath here of very heavy rain, even into the parts of the interior deep south, as this storm system and cold front drops south, taps into some of this Gulf moisture and energy, and wrings it out over the land areas and coastal waters of the Gulf Coast. Now, if we look in the western Pacific, this is the track for the super typhoon Usagi out there. Looks like it's going to pass just to the south, but hopefully by a comfortable enough margin of Taiwan here to keep them out of the core of the heaviest winds, which is a good thing, that eye wall. Take a look as I get rid of the track overlay. Look at the infrared shot here. Luckily, in one regard, you can hardly see the eye, which is right there. It's not very prominent if you look at the different bands of the satellite that it's capable of taking imagery from. You have your infrared band, water vapor is another one, for example. These different methods of looking at the weather, and in this case tropical cyclones. You see the eye right there, but not very well defined like it was yesterday. Typhoon Usagi going through an eye wall replacement cycle where the core of the typhoon collapses to an extent and a new one forms farther out away from that inner core, and then this starts to contract inward, and you go through this pulsing like this. It looks like it's going to track in eventually towards Hong Kong, probably weakening along the way. Sea surface temperatures in this region warm, but they do cool off just a little bit the closer you get to mainland China. So something to watch, be a newsmaker for sure for that region, and hopefully not a major disaster. But even in the Western Pacific, typhoon activity at a curious low point over the last several years, not seeing nearly the numbers and intensities of typhoons, and that also holds true for Eastern Pacific hurricanes. And of course, Atlantic Basin hurricanes numbers way down, and people are starting to wonder why. Maybe we are going into a cooling period where the tropics won't be as active. It's hard to say with just a few years of data, but it does raise some eyebrows as to what's going on and why the global downturn in tropical cyclone activity has occurred. So ponder over that issue over the weekend as you enjoy maybe some football or whatever. Your kids keep you busy on the soccer fields, you name it. Remember, though, if you're down on the Gulf Coast and parts of the interior, deep south and southeast, you're going to have a possibility of some heavy rain. So be prepared for that. But at least nothing worrisome coming from the tropics, unless you're over there in the Western Pacific, in Taiwan or parts of mainland China. Well, that is it for me for today. Have a good rest of your Friday and a great weekend. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, my site. Always an honor and a privilege to do these videos for you on Hurricane Pro in HD. I'll be back over the weekend with more.